Hello, welcome back to the 12 Days of Caketastrophe. So if you're not familiar with the series I just did for this Christmas is I'm taking the 12 Days of Christmas and changing them to a caketastrophe and basically telling you one story every single day of the 12 days about how I screwed up making pastries and cakes one time. It's really just to make you guys feel better and also just offer some light entertainment, and I love these stories. I tell them all the time when people think they're horrible or have messed up, and to make them feel better I tell them a story and say, please, you still have a while to go. If you want to take my position, I am the worst. Thank you very much. No, thankfully I have improved a lot, but the thing is you always kind of do have that one time where you mess up a little bit. No matter how good you get, you always forget something really simple or something like that. So the stories are always like constantly building and they just get better and better. I have a ton of these stories, so maybe next year I'll do it again if you guys really enjoy it. But today I am going to talk to you about the focaccia incident. So focaccia is like an Italian bread. It's basically usually like it's a bread that is usually quite flat, and they usually often have herbs in like little indents, like finger dents, and then they stick herbs in there and then like cover it with oil, and then sometimes they sprinkle some spices on top or seasoning. Usually I think the version we were making was just a very simple one where it was like flat and a square, and then we did finger dents, and then you basically added a bit of rosemary, drizzled oil, olive oil over the top, and then we sprinkled some salt. So it was a nice, slightly seasoned, salty, and rosemary kind of like pairing, which was a really nice bread. Well, it would have been nice had the incident not happened. This was back when I was in school, in pastry school, about 4 or 5 years ago. So usually you work with a partner, call your bench buddy, in a very, very big professional kitchen with those kind of metal counters. And we were on the same bench and we were working together. The reason for bench buddies is sometimes bigger recipes you could actually work together or split the job, and also you can share certain ingredients. That way it was more of this butter system just probably made things more efficient essentially. Sneeze. Okay, back to the story. So anyway, so when we got to the bread making, the idea was that you would do what I just described to you and then sprinkle salt on at the end before you bake it. And we always had a recipe book, and the recipe book divided into 2 columns and a few rows, and it would usually specify just in very brief information of how many grams of how many ingredients of whatever ingredients there to use, and also the steps on the right hand side. And it was, to be honest, to be fair, I feel like it was a mix of common sense, but also like they could have just like been a little bit more specific with the instructions. But you know, me being like also kind of like, I don't know, half switched on sometimes in class. I don't know why. Like even though I was like really enjoying making stuff, I guess the tension of things sometimes gets to you. This is probably why people screw up in like a kitchen, like in like something like Gordon Ramsay's situation, because I would be the idiot bread, the idiot sandwich at like that time, whenever. Anyway, so it said basically 25 grams, I think, or something like that of salt, which is a lot of salt. Like it's a pretty big handful of salt for bread that's only like this size, you know. So no matter how much salt you like or how much seasoning you like in your bread, I don't know if you'll need 25 grams. And basically, I remember I picked it up and I was like, okay, have to do the salt. Okay. Oh, that's a lot of salt. Oh wow, they really want us to use this much? And at which point, like when I was already almost done with the 25 grams worth at least of like salt, I kind of didn't process the fact that it was more like, here is 25 grams of salt, season to your taste or season as you need kind of thing. which I don't know why they gave such a huge amount if you were never probably going to use something that much salt. Anyway, at that point I just kind of was like, it's time to think, oh gee, this is a lot of salt, like I don't know if you need this much. And then I turned over to my to my benchmate, who was also doing his salt but had already finished, and kind of at this time met eye to eye, and his expression was like, no joke, like this. And I was just like, and then it was like in that moment where, you know, like nothing said but things just clicked into place, and I was just like, oh shit, this ain't good. So I think because I was pretty much almost done anyway, I went with it and just added the extra amount of salt because it was like me, I was very salty at the time. Saltiness was everything. So we baked it, I took it out, and of course, like any other story that was school related, we had the evaluation at the end of the shift, and this time it was something where, let's say the chef actually had to taste it. It was something that the chef would taste. So we cut it up, sliced it up, and I can't remember, to be honest, if the chef actually tasted mine, but because there was so much salt on top, and they were like the flaky kind of salts, it was really obvious, and he could see it straight away, and he was going around the different benches just quickly checking before we can start packing up and stuff. So it was like, oh my god, that is so much salt. And I was just like, wasn't really sure what to say. I mean, I wasn't sure if I explained the situation of like what happened would have helped my impression. Like, was it helpful saying, ooh yeah, accidentally too much salt, or saying, yeah, actually I read 25 grams and I was like, yeah, that's a lot of salt, and I used it anyway. Like, neither one would have actually went well for me. But yeah, so in the end, yeah, that's what happened, and I just don't actually remember how well I scored. I feel like I blurred out a lot of memories from like when I was in school, and I already had like been baking for like half a year or like at least a few months of a variety of things when I was at home. But I guess I didn't have a solid understanding of a lot of things, how things worked, so hence all these screw-ups. Anyway, the story doesn't end there. I took it home after they were sliced up, wrapped them and popped them in the freezer because apparently the breads were better in the freezer generally. It's better for warming up later, keeping it fresh rather than letting it sit in the fridge, apparently. And I think in particular that kind of bread. So I put it in the freezer and back at home, and my aunt was like, okay, yeah, cool, yeah, I'll have it sometime maybe. And then she apparently did take a piece and warm it up for breakfast the next day. And when I came down to get breakfast, she was like, oh my god, what was that bread that you brought home from class? It was so salty. She was like, I like scraped up like the top layer and it was still salty. And I was just like, there's 25 grams of that, so I don't remember if I think I was like avoiding talking about that bread, so I didn't really explain the situation of it, and I'm not sure why I decided to bring it home anyway and allowed someone to eat that. But yeah, someone experienced the full saltiness of the bread as the wrath of the focaccia. So yeah, that was the focaccia. If you enjoyed that story, there's a few more coming, and some of them even more juicy, of my failures in the kitchen. So if you enjoyed that video and the story and the sadness and the saltiness that was everything in this story, please click the like and subscribe button so there's more coming so you can see them all, and also don't forget the bell notification, little bell button that actually tells you whenever I upload a video so you don't miss it, because sometimes YouTube doesn't tell you. And I will keep uploading until the 12 days of Christmas for this series, so you can get a few more stories and kicks and laughs out of this. Otherwise, if you have any really funny stories that this reminds you of, please share it down in the comments. I'd love to like see how other people have done things that's similar, or if they've done worse things to make me feel better. But yeah, please be gentle with me.